Hello, everybody. Good evening. Nice to see you. Welcome to this live stream. The title of the talk today is well, I'm not sure I know what the title is. They've changed the broadcaster on YouTube, and I cannot see the title. Maybe you have to go to my YouTube page. It's something about the headless way, I think. Um, yeah, let's look on YouTube. So maybe before I find the title, I just speak about the disclaimer that I do before I do any talk. And the disclaimer is that this isn't therapy. I've said this so many times, but people really don't listen to this. They're really like, yeah, I'm having all these relationship problems, or my life is blowing up, or I've got too much stress, or I've burnt myself out, or I'm in burnout. And then they think that this is going to heal them. And that's highly unlikely. Yeah, there are remedies for burning yourself out. There's scientifically proven, although I don't know how well that's scientifically proven because that's hard to test. But there are ways in which you can make circumstances in your life better, make the body better, make relationships better, understand dynamics, understand why you're burning yourself out. And if we're just speaking about pure non-duality, then it most probably won't answer those types of things. So what I teach is I just tend to focus on non-duality. I don't talk that much about how to heal psychology or heal your life. I do talk about seeking dynamics, which is a little bit like psychology, but generally I don't speak about it. I don't speak too much about trauma release or how to balance the body. But I highly recommend doing it, but I'm not the teacher for that. I feel that, like, firstly, I'm not trained in some of these things. Some of them I am trained in. But so you should go to somebody that's trained in it. And then secondly, I feel like if I want to focus on speaking about non-duality and communicating the energy of non-duality, the peace and the stillness, I can't incorporate all these other things because it diverts from the energy. Some teachers do, and that's not a criticism or praise, that's just what they're doing. And that could be really helpful for you. I'm not saying it can or can't be helpful for you. I'm just saying and stating what I do actually do. So I feel like what I do is I communicate the energy of non-duality through words and through silence. I feel like the words have an effect of like working like a slide to slide you deeper into freedom. And then I also feel that that also there's an energetic resonance that happens as well, like you resonate with that stillness and silence in you. So I feel like I'm like a meditation. Like what I do is like a meditation or like something which points that freedom out to you. And that is really profound in itself, but it just doesn't maybe heal all these other things. In the end, non-duality is absolute freedom, but that doesn't mean it's going to heal your body if you're in burnout. It will just be freedom, and then the body will be in burnout. But maybe it might heal the body, who knows? There are all these miracles that happen with non-duality. Oh, hi. I think people are trying to tell me that I muted Zoom. Sorry, guys in Zoom. Yeah. Um, so I think that that was okay on the live stream. I think they could all hear me. Although I feel like live stream is really... Yeah, sorry about that, loves. I forgot to unmute myself after I blew my nose. That happens sometimes. I saw Isabel's hand like in the corner of my eye, like she's like almost like banging or knocking on the camera. Thank you, Izzy. Yeah. So, but I think you were all able to hear on YouTube. Yeah. So I wondered why so many people were leaving the stream. Oh, okay, that's that. Yeah. So I was basically just doing my usual disclaimer about how non-duality is not therapy. So if you go onto my website, there is a reference page with loads of different therapeutic practices, and I recommend all of you should have a body work, a breath work, and a trauma release work that you're doing most days, at least one of them. So, or yeah. And breathwork can include singing mantras. And this is just to keep the body healthy. This isn't about non-duality, it's to keep the body healthy, the mind healthy, and everything balanced. And I recommend that all of you should go to therapy until you've got a good conceptualization of your personality structure. So to find a good therapist that can reflect back what your personality is up to. Whether whether it's like being in shame, or whether it's like avoidance, whatever the personality is up to. You don't need to always go to therapy, but just until you understand what your personality is like. A lot of people are in a lot of denial. Yeah, so on my reference page, there's body work, there's breath work on there, there's lots of books, and then there is so much more out there that I haven't got on there. So if you look on there and you think there's something else that might be helpful for people, please email Amelia from my website or put it in Telegram, and we can put that on the website. This here now is about non-duality. It's not about addiction recovery, it's not about burnout, it's not about relationships, it's about non-duality. There can be a touching on that, but this is primarily about going beyond the story of who you think yourself to be. Yeah. Okay, so now I found the title of the talk, so I will start with the title of the talk. The title of the talk today is called The Headless Way, an easy trick to realize that you're not the body. So, yeah, I'm not sure how many of you have ever heard of the Headless Way, and I am no expert in the Headless Way, so if you disagree with what I'm saying, please write it in the comments or write it in the chat, and that gives an opportunity for people to see a different perspective. So, from my very vague understanding of the teaching of the Headless Way, which is from, I think, a teacher called Douglas Harding, who was a student of Ramana Maharshi, from what I understand. The Headless Way is from a story, I think, about Shiva, about imagining that you do not have a head now. So most of the time what we're doing is we're imagining our heads and our bodies, and we're imagining it inside our head or inside us somehow. And then we're kind of walking around once removed, like imagining ourselves as something interacting with the world. So rather than just experiencing what's happening, which might be happening some of the time, there's pure experiencing, but most of the time it's not pure experiencing, it's once removed experiencing. You're imagining yourself as a thing, an object interacting. And that can be like super subtle. It can be happening incredibly quickly. Like so, it's a really subtle thing where whereas like an energy that sort of pulls you into a location, and then this vague imagining of what other people might be seeing, or what you fear they might be seeing, or what you hope they might be seeing. So, yeah, notice that often when you're in a situation, that you're imagining yourself as an image interacting with the outside world, and that image is normally the body. It might not be a direct image of your body, it might be a fantasy of something much better looking, or it might be like a horror show of something much worse looking, like you might have a different image to what's actually there. But there's this imagination of looking from a body. So when you're interacting, you're never quite interacting with the way things are. You're imagining yourself as a subject and then the objects out there. So you're never fully present to what's happening. There's an imagination of something else. So just from a very quick explanation, I feel like the headless way is that you imagine yourself without a head, and through the continued practice of this, then you stop imagining yourself as a subject interacting. So I had a friend one time who used to say to me, because I never really studied Douglas Harding. Harding, I think his name is. Maybe someone correct me if it's not Harding. And the Headless Way. I heard about it, and my friend used to do on it, be like, "Who's the finger pointing at?" To me, and then a friend, after my awakening, a friend said to me that she felt headless, and she used to say this often. I was a bit like, okay, I don't know really what she means by that, but fair enough. She feels like she doesn't have a head. And then one day, we actually decided to speak about that. So I asked her questions, what does it mean being headless to you? And she began to explain the experience that she felt really spacious, that she didn't feel located anywhere. She felt like there was no back to her and there was no front to her. There was just a spaciousness happening. And to me, when I had my awakening, my words that came was energetic expansion. I had also had teachers like Tony Parsons and Nathan Gill who also spoke about energetic expansion. And I had other teachers that called it different ways, but that's what felt the best for me, because it was like I was here and then suddenly I was this bigness, this largeness. I wasn't located anymore. I was like spacious, big, like expanded. And so when she started describing this, I felt like, oh, we're really talking about the same sort of thing. Like, I just call it an expansion because, that's the schools, the teachers in which I grew up in. And that's what felt the nearest to it, was this sense of expanding. And so that was really interesting for me that we were actually talking about the same thing, but I would have never said that I felt headless. That would have never occurred to me to come up with that. I mean, I would be more like I feel bodiless. But because she came through Douglas Harding, there was like a relationship obviously to that. And when she expanded, there was this sense of like not having a head. But even before the awakening and the energetic shift, you can begin to imagine like not having a head now. Like right now, we're interacting seemingly. So I'm speaking to you. I can't actually see anyone on Zoom at the moment, but I'm speaking to you. And who am I speaking to? Who am I speaking to? So if you imagine that you don't have a head, who is hearing this? Who is seeing this? It requires a head to hear this, to see this. But in the instant of it, who is seeing and who is hearing? Who is thinking about this? Who is knowing this? What is knowing this? I don't know why or how Douglas Harding came up with this. It's not something that Ramana prescribed, but this really resonated for him. In the end, that spaciousness, to complete the awakening for me, is it needs to meet with beingness. And that's the love side of things. So that spaciousness becomes so big or non-located, it merges back into everything. So then there is nobody experiencing anything. So then the awareness has merged back with the beingness. Sat, Chit, Ananda. So Sat is consciousness. No, Chit is consciousness, Sat is beingness. And then Ananda is the blissfulness of that. So Ramana, he spoke in a different way. He spoke in terms of holding on to the initial I. So when we identify, it's an energetic thing as well as a thought-based thing, but it goes, I am Lisa. I am Isabel. I am good. I am bad. I have done something wrong. Yeah, I like this or I don't like this, that. So it always starts with this I. And Ramana, his modality of teaching was to hold on to the initial I. And that's a really intelligent practice, because when you do it, the one that's holding on to the I disappears into the I. Like when you really do it. And he recommends, keep questioning who am I until you get back to that original feeling of I, and then stay there. And all different teachers teach different ways. Papaji would just be like, stop, stop. Or his other way of teaching would be to desire this with every part of you. And kind of in desiring this, you disappear in the desire. Because in order to desire something, you have to already know that thing. So in order to desire freedom, you have to already know freedom. So he said desire it to the max, and then you disappear into that desire, which is freedom. Nisargadatta would say to focus on the feeling of I am, to remain with the feeling of I am. Some teachers don't prescribe anything. They just encourage going to satsang. Some teachers just do darshan, which is like a silent, energetic communication of that. Ramana was one of those teachers. He said that his true teaching was in silence. Ramesh Balsakar, his only practice that he gave was at the end of the day to take a glass of whiskey. I really don't recommend the glass of whiskey, but that's what he'd say. And then follow back when a choice began, because To him, the I and doership were one and the same thing. So you take a choice throughout from the day, and then you follow that choice back to see where it began. So this is also like infinity mirrors. It just sends you into infinity, into stillness, because, so say like the choice to come here and do this live stream. When did that choice begin? When I began to pack up my stuff to come here to do the live stream? When I decided to live here? When I decided to get into non-duality? When I went to the Buddhist center for the first time? When I suffered for the first time? When my parents met? When my grandparents met? When the first bacteria formed on this planet? Like when? When did my choice begin? And this also sends you into infinity. Another practice that's famous in India is the repetition of God's name until you become one with God's name. Another is bhakti, is focusing on an image you love until you dissolve into that which you love. I just have no allegiance. And I also don't know. That's like the most scary and worst thing for a teacher to say, right? Is that they don't know. You're like, look, I'm here to follow you so you can tell me what to do so I can get there. But for a teacher to say, I don't know, it's like, what type of teacher is she? But I also don't know. All that's I can claim to know is what's happening now. So these words coming out. And then if there were things that said, okay, I do know, then that's what would be coming out. But then when that's past, then there's just what's happening again. I can say what I did in my path or what other teachers did in their path. But in the end, I don't know what leads to what. And then another way, nothing leads from this to that. And I would say what inspires you there to follow. And under Mahima, and many teachers would say, bring God close to you. So that which seems to bring God close to you. So if singing mantras brings God closer to you, or stillness closer to you, then follow that. Sometimes when you're suffering, you can't feel God coming close to you. And sometimes then you just have to do wisdom. So do body work, things to balance out the body-mind mechanism, and wait for those feelings, for that dynamic to appear. Sometimes the body-mind is so stressed, that's all that can be heard is the stress or the discomfort. If listening to satsang is what currently brings silence or closer to God, then go for it. There's so much free on YouTube now. This generation of seekers is so lucky in that regard. Like you can click on YouTube and listen to different talk. I had like a couple of talks that I could forward on CD that I just listened to again and again and again. And they contain it all in the end. One satsang contains it all. So, but it's nice to have it put different ways. So who is sitting here right now? Who is listening to this talk? Who is commenting on this talk? So maybe there is a commenter or commenting on past things or what you've got to do or stresses. Who is that? Who wants to get somewhere? Who wants to feel a certain way? And none of that is it. What is it is this, the emptiness, the spaciousness of what you are. This aliveness, this presence. And it may not seem that important, this awakeness. Like the mind and knowing and understanding and time might seem way more important. But this awakeness is so important. This awake, alive presence that's right here, that is without thought, that knows but simultaneously doesn't know. It's awake, but yet it knows nothing. And that is so important. This is the freedom to be in connection to that. And this is where, like, people can get confused, so you can have bodily ailments and there can be freedom, but it doesn't mean you don't heal the bodily ailments, because sometimes when the bodily ailments are so strong, it encourages so much seeking that there has to be a relaxation of that. But this is where people get confused and think, okay, I just do this and it will solve everything. Because the awakeness is the freedom in everything. It's always here. Nobody has less or more of it, Ramana Maharshi didn't have more awakeness than you. It's just that Ramana Maharshi wasn't somebody. He wasn't identified with being a somebody, with being a name and a form. So that awakeness was like crystal clear at all times. It was pristine. So everything that he was interacting with, there was this pure awakeness, this pure presence shining through. And that is the freedom. The character is in this and that and problems and solving and me and them and good and bad. And the character has relevance. It needs to appear for a certain amount of functioning. But most people have put too much investment in it to the point where they believe that that character is who they are, rather than an appearance in who they are. And this is not disassociation. I don't like this disassociation and non-duality talk. It's like the opposite to disassociation, because it's like you become so present to the body that the body disappears. It's not that you're out of the body. It's not that, like, disassociation is the person, is living in imagination, is living in the story of you to try to avoid the experience of being this body. Whereas waking up is absolute embodiment, to the point that there is no difference between body and world. You go so deeply into it that the boundary between it and world just disappears, just like if you went deeply into any particle, its boundary disappears. But not from a disassociated bit where you're like in imagination, in dreamland, in denial. You're totally awake and present to the experience, but not you as a thought, not you as a story. You as this emptiness, as this spaciousness, as this expansion, as this freedom. So who is listening to this now? Who is experiencing this now? Who? Yeah, if you've ever watched any of my earlier videos, they used to be, I used to struggle to not be like, who let the dogs out? But it's such a nasty song. As soon as you go, who? This is it. This is the freedom. Who is experiencing now? What is experiencing now? Where does it start and stop? The opposite to the headless way is the imagination that it starts and stops here, that there is something inside this head. There is nothing inside this head. No thing inside this head. And that no thing isn't some nasty black hole where nothing exists. It's what you are, it's freedom, it's not something scary that you're trying to get away from. It's spaciousness, it's what's always been there. What's not always been there is all the forms that appear in the spaciousness. That is the lie. And then we get so tied up in all the forms. The spaciousness is free, is undivided, and then the forms appear, and then suddenly there's division, there's distance, there's time, there's something happening, but the spaciousness is always here. And it's not even really spaciousness, because spaciousness too implies distance between you and me, whereas spaciousness is not divided, is non-divided, so it isn't a size. It's not like this infinite universe that's out there, because the infinite universe only exists because there is galaxies here and there. Whereas if all things disappeared, then the spaciousness would be no size, without place, without location. And that is what's looking out of this eye now, this infinite spaciousness. Isn't that miraculous? So you are the deepest space, and then also you are the most cramped space. You know, you're the inner city, and then you're the deepest space. And that is what's experiencing out of the eyes. And that is often why people who are awake's eyes glitter, because it's the whole of the universe looking out of the eyes. And then other people, they seem asleep because they've got fog. They're dreaming, all these dreams, which can be exciting, but often can be very tragic. Okay, so maybe we go to questions now. I hope it's all working. I'm in a different location today. It seemed like it was a bit stuttery earlier. Yeah, so what I will do is I will do one hands up spoken question and then one written question. You can write the question in the Telegram group, and or you can write it in the chat in the Zoom. And if you're on YouTube and would like to join these Zoom meetings, so you can ask a question, then you can find out how to do that on my website, which is in the box below. Okay, I'm thinking that maybe I turn the camera resolution down. Is it a bit bumpy? Hang on. Is it bumpy or is it good? It's good, the video? Good, okay. Mark, you're the only one that's like, no, it's bumpy. For everyone else, they're saying it's good. Okay. Well, there is no hands up. Oh, yes, there is a hands up. Oh, bless. Everyone's telling me there's no sounds. Oh, thank you, everyone, for all the messages about the sound. I really appreciate it. I didn't see it, but I really appreciate it. Oh, Thomas, you have your hand up. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lisa. Can you
Hey,
hear me?
Thomas. Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, Thomas.
So usually my head is very heavy, full with thoughts and things to do and plans. But when I look in your eyes, it it gets like a little bit headless. So the thinking retreats and there's more space.
Yeah,
And but in the background is still a kind of holding, like a tightness.
yeah,
But it's far away. But it's not completely headless, you know.
yeah,
It's like an empty head, but it's still not. It's still there. Yeah,
yeah. Totally. I understand.
yeah. It just was just my experience when you talked about the headless way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So in the silent being or looking at each other's eyes, there is something, um, yeah, something headless, something spacious.
yeah,
It's something like being, like you call being. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just pure being, more pure being. And even with the bit that's contracted somewhere off in the distance, just be open to the idea that that information that there is contraction isn't a truth in any way. Like you've always been spacious, the spaciousness. You've never been contracted. So there is a story saying that, and then there's the feeling, and then a story that says that. But just if you come back to the feeling without the story, just be open to the fact that that feeling that feels contracted is also totally spacious. It's all places and no places simultaneously.
Yeah, that's interesting because I often feel some tightness in my body, and then but I make a story out of it,
Yeah.
and I go there and I want to fight it or want to cure it, or
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
and it's yeah.
And if actually there is
And,
just like the total presence to it, it actually loses its size and dimensions. But that's hard because the mind is very insistent. Like, so it's
yes,
very,
yes, yeah,
very insistent
yeah.
on its
You
stories
mean
about things.
to go right to the core of the feeling?
Mm. Or to just hold on to the initial feeling of I, which is also going to the core of the feeling. Because when you hold on to
Mm,
the I, what's happening is this absolute presence happening. So any uncomfortableness is being brought into presence too. It's not like some disassociation where you're pushing away uncomfortableness. It's like becoming
mhm,
incredibly present to everything that's there when you hold on to the initial I. And then when there's holding on to it, you kind of disappear in that. And then the stories about the scenario or the situation disappear too. And then there isn't, without the stories, there isn't a subject and object. There isn't a relationship. There isn't two.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks, Thomas.
thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, so for those that are on YouTube and they're like, why is she not speaking? Oh, she's doing her silent thing, looking in the eyes again. It's because there's no question. It makes me laugh, some of the comments. Like, yeah, some people get really angry that I do the silent thing. I'm not meaning to laugh at people. It's just laughing at like our minds and the way that we interpret things. Like as if in any way silence could be offensive. I think some people think it's because I see some of the comments. I don't look at all of them, but I see some of them, and some people think it's because I'm hypnotizing people with my eyes. And I agree that there is something going on, but there's an energetic exchange, but the the exchange is not a hypnotism into something. So it's not like I'm sitting there and I'm like, follow me, or do as I say, or donate money or something. Like the transition that's happening is nothing. Is nothing. So it's kind of funny, like people's interpretation that like it's like this kind of, and this isn't something I do. This is something that's been done for hundreds of, maybe even thousands of years. This type of sitting in silence or looking in each other's eyes, and it's the goal of it is nothing. Is to recognize no thingness, not to get something, to achieve something, to get something from people. Yeah, I don't know if there could be an understanding of the humor of that the projection would be from the mind, okay, she's hypnotizing, or people are hypnotizing doing that. Because what would they be trying to get? I can understand that there could be the idea that it's like trying to get money, or trying to, I don't know, get fame, or trying to get something in that way. Yeah. And maybe if that's what's arising for you, like maybe then just laughing at it's not the appropriate thing, really. Like, because if that is arising in you, and it might be because you've been taken advantage of in the past, and so there is like fear of being taken advantage of here. And so you can explore that. You can also explore that by doing a one-to-one session with somebody. So I don't do one-to-one sessions, but there's therapists, there's non-duality teachers on my website, and just explore that feeling that arises in you that somebody's going to take advantage of you. Yeah. And then also like learning how to um, watch out for signs if somebody is taking advantage of you, because maybe if that's appeared before, then there isn't a knowing of how to recognize the signs, and so you feel vulnerable in that situation. And to me, this is part of non-duality, like seeing the not trueness of everything, the not trueness of our mind. That doesn't mean to see the not trueness to then be filled up by somebody else's mind. It means to discover this something inside of you, and then you still have a character which has a mind and has thoughts. And I'm not suggesting that the character becomes full of Lisa's thoughts or some teacher's thoughts. It's recognizing the emptiness that's here prior to the thoughts. But sometimes the thoughts have to be examined because they're so noisy and they're so big and they have so much charge in them that they cover the screen in a way. They make it hard to see what else is happening here, what is behind those thoughts. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Christopher, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, Lisa.
Hello.
So very happy to be here on a Sunday evening. It's beautiful. I wanted to share what because the Headless Way, I heard about it a few years ago and I understood it intellectually. But since Swami Sarvapriyananda said, the fact is you'll never be able to see your face, your head, it instantly put me in the witness position. And since then, it feels like a blessing because I can go there. Every time I realize I will never see my face, it brings me here. In fact, it just brings me
Yeah.
here, which is the same thing when you look into people's eyes or when you look into my eyes. What I realize is I'm always lost in thought, and it brings me into silence and brings me it cancels the me or whatever. It does something. It brings me back to here.
Yeah.
I'm lost. It brings me back home when you look when I
Yeah.
when I see in your eyes and brings me yes here. But I wanted to understand because when I realized that it instantly puts me in the witness position effortlessly to realize I will never see my face. Is it that all my life I've been looking for my face and now I know I will never see it? I mean, is that something?
Yeah.
That's what I mean, only silly questions are the one not asked, but
Yeah.
because it has such a calming effect.
Yeah.
Like you've been looking for your face all your life and you don't basically have been looking for me and there's no such thing as me.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what's been happening.
Powerful exercise.
Yeah.
I've it's a very powerful exercise.
You
Why is it
seem,
working now? It didn't work 3 years ago. I don't know, but it all
yeah.
of works.
That's and that's what happens like through this path. You'll sometimes find some things resonate and other things, and in the end, when you really pay attention, you'll notice that they all come at the perfect time. So all these teachings, like, so you hear it 10 years ago and it makes no effect. Like my friend always used to be like, who's the finger pointing at? And it did nothing. And then eventually, like, at one point I was like, oh, like, like there's nothing the finger is pointing at. So yeah, there's that. But going back to what you said about the seeking for yourself, that is what the whole seeking game is about, is looking for yourself. And the character tries to find itself in itself. So the character tries to become somebody to find itself, but it can never hold that up. It can never make that work. You can never create this final image of who you are. It creates so much suffering to always try to be a good person, always try to be successful, always try to be kind, or all the virtues in which we tend to like in society, which we can't hold on to because we're not a thing. We're no thing, and then all things that appear. And then this recognition that you'll never see your own face is deeply relaxing, and it's so
The
you
search is
never
over.
have, yeah, you never have to find yourself because you don't exist. It is already here. But I can also understand if people haven't had these shifts or these recognitions, they just can see this as like madness or like disassociation, or because there's not that knowing, that deep knowing of this witnessing or this emptiness, that there's nothing looking out. Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you, Lisa. Brings me in deep space.
I can't seem to get my computer to really work very well today. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful picture, Alistair. Oh, so he realised it through this drawing, or he was drawing it. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, let me just check there's no written questions in Telegram. No. So if you want to write a question, if you're shy to ask something, you can just write it in the chat or in Telegram. But we shall move to Hans now. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Hans.
Really, thanks for this. Was amazing, and I loved as well the remark of Christopher on it, and I hope this will help me. In a way, I noticed for myself that I take everything personal. Everything has to do with me, and this is like so difficult. Already knowing for so long that it can't be about me because there is no me. But anyway, this keeps on going. It has to be with me. It's my fault. That, all this thing. So yeah, I hope this headless way perhaps helps in a way.
Is
Because it's always the
Hans
head, of course, that is, yeah.
is Hans one of the stories then that you're to blame, like it's your fault? Is that something your mind interprets a lot?
Yeah,
That,
that's
that
what's
it's your fault?
happening.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
your fault. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can, maybe you've done that before, like work with people to get a good conceptual understanding of why that arises. So there's different personality types, I feel, and there's different stories, and some people have more of a tendency towards blaming themselves for experience. Other
Okay.
people have more of a tendency to blame others for the experience. You know, there's all these different tendencies. So working with someone and getting a good conceptualized understanding of it is a good thing. You might have done that already, but that's one recommendation. But then from the non-duality perspective, and this is why sometimes non-duality can be deeply relaxing for some characters, is because the recognition of non-duality is the recognition that nobody ever acted independently from everything else. And this we kind of know. Like, so you know now that your language is based on all the humans that came before. So you're not spontaneously, as Hans, making up language. It's something which we could say is seemingly evolved. We could also say from the other side of non-duality, it's spontaneously coming out now. But in the story of things, you're not the creator of language. So you're also not the creator of thoughts. Thoughts are something that have evolved through many generations of humans. And also self-blame is something that's evolved. So whatever you are now on the story side of things, if we go to like Ramesh Balsaka's teaching, it's a result of everything that came before you. And if you really recognize that everything is dependent on everything else, there can never be someone that is guilty of anything. Because who would be guilty? Like this entity that feels like it's guilty inside the body is a result of all things that came before. So every action you do, you could say in one way is spontaneously happening now, but in the timeline way, it's a result of everything, not a result of certain things. So self-blame is like, oh, it's because I did this and this and this happened. It's a result of everything. And when you see it's a result of everything, it loses the personality, the personalness of it. That it's a personal thing.
Okay, well.
So it's like a meditation that you can keep doing, is that, like, can I ever be responsible for what is happening? Can I ever be responsible? Another way to do it is to work with someone to understand how that arises, because it often arises in early childhood, like relationship, like the relationships in early childhood, like whether you take too much responsibility or not enough responsibility. So that can be looked at so that it can be understood better. But even if that did occur, that still is a result of everything that came beforehand. And it's just there's absolutely nobody's guilty. Like it's really giving everything over to God. Like everything, and what God is nothing, is emptiness, empty space, and then all things. So it's a result of everything, and it's a result of no one thing. It is a very beautiful story when it's really, really taken to its depths. It's not meant to be avoiding, or it's not meant to be neglectful. So that's why there's recommendations of like understanding the personality structure and maybe somatic work to understand where you feel that. But then it's also incorporating that there's nobody there that has responsibility for this life. The remorse or the senses of shame or badness is a habit which is formed. It's not.
Yeah, of course, shame is one of the things that follows. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a habit that's formed. It's not actually talking about somebody.
Yeah.
Another thing that can be good for these feelings is body work. I'm a big fan of body work. I know it might sound a bit odd, but even if you just take up a practice of something like yoga or daily pranayama breathing.
Yeah, I do quite a lot of yoga. Yeah.
Nice.
Somatic.
Yeah, somatic work. Like it helps like the body release it. Like I know you know this, but just for other people out there. Like so that habit is also a bodily habit. It's not just a thought habit. They're connected.
Yeah.
So as you change the body, you change your thoughts. And you most probably notice after yoga the thoughts are different.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Essentially, since the somatic is only since is now 3 or 4 weeks that I'm practicing every day, and I love it. I really love it.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
And the more that you
Because
realize the benefit of it,
yeah,
the more you'll carry on doing it. Yeah, carry on.
yeah. No, that it's okay. I'm used to do yoga for 20 years, and since I discovered the somatic, I feel something is here now. There is really, that's what I love. This is what his body loves. Really, it's really different. The somatic. Yeah, I love it.
Nice.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Hans.
It's helpful.
So to me, like I might have a bit of a cold. It might seem like a bit of a cold outlook to some people, but actually it's really loving. But this is something for you to explore. But when I said to Hans, like that's really great that you love it, because the more that you notice the benefits of it, the more you'll carry on doing it. So this to me is not a personal thing. This is just the setup of these bodies. So these bodies are naturally orientated towards more pleasure and less pain. But then with the identification and with the illusions of thoughts, that gets very muddled up. So then it's like, say, one thing that we do as humans is we overeat things that are most probably not so good for us, and they actually cause us more pain in the future. But in the moment of it, like these sugars and fats are really like enjoyable, but then afterwards they're not so enjoyable. And recognizing that is an important way to break it. But you have to pay attention, because if you eat loads of sugar and fats in one go, continuously, maybe not just one time, you'll begin to notice that afterwards your emotions and your feelings don't feel so good. So therefore, when you begin to notice that from paying attention of it, more than likely there might be, unless it's a severe addiction, a breaking away from doing that. Not because it's personal that there's somebody there, but just the natural setup. Because we move towards pleasure and away from pain, if we begin to notice that the food we're eating is making us feel really bad, then we will stop doing that. We often don't notice because we're not paying attention. So we eat food, feel really bad afterwards, have a fight with our partner, and think the reason that we feel bad is because our partner's been annoying. But it's actually just because you've just ingested food that has really thrown your nervous system into haywire. You got agitated, and then the partner's got agitated, and then a fight has broken out. But if you're really paying attention, if you're really awake, if you're holding on to the initial I and not lost in thoughts, then you'll begin to notice these things. So doing somatic work, doing yoga, and you're really paying attention, you'll notice that as you do things that are more healthy for you, there is actually more long-term pleasure. There is nothing wrong with the movement towards pleasure and the movement away from pain. When it becomes suffering is when there's the belief that pleasure is freedom and pain is the end of freedom. So you can really see pleasure and pain in this movement clearly when you deeply know that freedom is being yourself, being awake. And in being awake, there is this human body that moves towards pleasure and away from pain. And it has this intelligent thinking, so it can adjust that movement. It doesn't really have free will, but it seemingly adjusts because there's no central I in those mechanisms. But that is the mechanism. But you have to be paying attention, otherwise you can't see that, say, doing certain things or like browsing on these YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is, these shorts, that browsing on that, after half an hour, actually, it begins to make you may feel ill, maybe, because it's maybe producing too much dopamine, so it's depleting you. It's okay for a little bit, but then it's like too much sugar and fat, like after a while, then the system becomes depleted. And if you're paying attention, if you're awake, you'll notice. If you're not awake, then what will happen is more than likely you'll go and fight with someone and blame someone else, or feel shame about yourself, or get fearful about, I don't know, your taxes or money or something, because it gets your system into that way of thinking. But when you're deeply rooted in self, and you're not lost in this game of craving, of believing that freedom is found in the future, of daydreaming, then you notice these things. And then there's a natural reorientation of the body that's not like you trying really hard to reorientate it. It naturally reorientates. But it comes from the first thing of paying attention. And what that means, not somebody paying attention, it's just being in yourself, not sleeping, just being here. Like a lot of the time people are in fogs, they're in this foggy land and the body is something really far off. So they don't notice, they're scrolling through Instagram and after an hour it's actually making them feel really sick. They don't notice that because they're just in a fog, and then the fog gets more and more chaotic and they don't know there's this, the body is saying stop, stop, stop. So then they get more into like a chaotic, foggy, uncomfortable daydream. And then they really believe that it's because of what their partner did, or because of what they haven't done, or because they've messed up their life, or all these foggy daydreams. But it's really because the body is uncomfortable. And then the body is signaling to that, and then that is signaling to the body and making the, it's like one and the other. But the most important part is the waking up, is the who is experiencing all of this. Who? And this certainly isn't like a talk to then use to beat yourself up. So, next time you're on Instagram or something and you're flicking through for hours, like to be like, oh no, this isn't it. This says it isn't. This is what's creating the argument with my partner or something. That's not it at all. Like if you're using any of this talk to compare or to beat yourself up, then you can realize that you're in a story of seeking. That's not what's being talked about here. Who is experiencing now? Who is awake now? Who knows this? Who is here? Okay, we just see if there's any written questions before we come to you, Chris. Okay, there is. So, Gloria says, Lisa, would you ever consider doing a satsang where you are just totally silent the whole entire time? It sounds beautiful. Um, uh, um, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, sometimes that arises, you know, when we're on retreat, sometimes no speaking arises. But yeah, and we did, like a couple of weeks ago, we did some singing and then an introduction and then some silence. So yeah, I don't know. Thanks for the suggestion though, Gloria. Maybe it arises now that you've suggested it. This is from Mitch. Sometimes when I gaze into people's eyes or point my finger towards my face, my vision goes blurry and it feels maybe like disassociating, and sometimes fear arises with it. I don't know if this is a bad disassociative thing, like something is resisting being in total presence, or if this is a side effect sometimes of devolving into nothingness. Any ideas? Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you from doing it here, you know, like I have lights facing me now, which I'm sure you can perceive that there's lights on my face. Like if I put my hands up, you see the shadows. And so I have my camera there, and then I've got two lights here. And it does make my vision a little bit funny sometimes looking at people. But then also when I do live talks, my vision can sometimes go a little bit funny. I think it's maybe the nature of focusing. You know, that the vision goes a bit funny. If you feel like you're disassociating though, it's like, to me, it's like checking in with the body. You know, put hands on your different chakras and check in and see if you're awake to that, or if that's like really numb or cut off, or like if you're more in this area. To me, disassociation, and I'm not an expert, I might be wrong on what disassociation is, so please anybody chime in or comment. Disassociation to me is like really being lost in daydream and really cutting off from the body, so the body kind of numbs out and goes dead and is not here. So you're really in this brain imagination land, and yeah, you're not really listening to what's happening, you're daydreaming what's happening. So in a way, everybody's kind of, when they're really identified, they're in some form of, maybe, I don't know if that's right, mild dissociation. I don't know if that's the correct thing to say though. So you know, the antidote to that is like feel the body, you know, give it a massage, see if you're actually feeling it. You know, you can be looking in someone's eyes and like rubbing your knees or something. Yeah. Okay, we can go to Chris now. Hey Chris, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey
Hello.
Chris.
Can I go back to what you were saying about feeling vulnerable by being exposed to things around, to being taken advantage of?
Yeah.
And um, I would share something. So I was actually in a cult for many years before I was awake, before I had a clear kind of awakening. Um, And since I've been awake, I've been practicing very much and enjoying this crazy new life of being here and being in myself, being in reality. Um, and I just had a conversation with someone, and so I had another opportunity. I've always, I think, felt vulnerable. Like I could also fall into the trap again of finding something on Earth that was, you know, important. Like I'm missing out. Like I'm missing out on something, and this is what God wants you to do. And it's been like this, like what am I really missing out? But since I've been awake, it feels like I've been able to just keep going back again and again and staying in this place that's so simple. And there's no stories, or there's no like spooky anything that's happening behind the scenes that I'm supposed to be doing. And coming back to presence again and again and again just feels like the natural thing that I am now. It wasn't before. I didn't see it before, but now I see it. And I guess that's the shift of mental thinking reality is what I'm thinking versus the knowing and
Yeah.
experiencing consciously, right? So I had I don't know if this is like a success story, but just for the last few days I was taking care of someone who was sick, and they were very, very convinced and sure that they were kind of like part of the galactic forces that were going to come and land on Earth and take over, and you have to be ready for it. And so she had a lot of, the moon is hollow and it's not real, and it's a spaceship. So she had a lot of, and I was listening to her while I was taking care of her day after day, and I started thinking, is this real? Is she really true? Is she really talking about something that she knows about? And she was really convinced, and she told me all about it. And she was a channeler, and all of this stuff. And I don't know about channeling. I don't know about past lives. I don't know about any of that. Really, I'm a really simple person. Um, but it made me, if at the very end of my time with her, I felt like, oh my gosh, I have to do all these things to get ready for to be called up and to be in the next higher level and all of this stuff. But then I said goodbye to her. And then, like, not too long after that, when she was gone, when I was out of her, speech, all of her stories and her talking, I was alone again. And fortunately, like, all the things that I started to think I was missing out, FOMO, fear of missing out, it just like disappeared because she wasn't there. And I was thinking, if I'm supposed to be called, then I'm going to have some alien step out and talk to me directly. It's not going to be something that I'm just trusting someone else's, you know, experience,
Yeah.
basically. And it went away, and now I'm kind of reconnoitering for the last couple days of just staying back in presence, getting out of the
Yeah.
stories, forgetting those stories, and just resting again. And it's true. It's really true. We're here, and that's all there is. And it's beautiful. Being is the only thing that really matters. All the
Yeah.
other stuff just it goes away.
Yeah.
So that's just I don't know.
So
But being vulnerable is a real thing.
yeah,
So
in the end, like I would say that the most important thing, so whatever I say, the most important thing is to come back to the truth that is there. Like I know that sounds very separate, like the truth that is there, but the truth that is happening in the apparent Chris experience, but it's not really Chris experience, it's beingness experience. And so even in what I say, it's like take it with a pinch of salt. The most important thing is to stay in yourself. To remain in yourself. That is where the freedom lies. And that is where all the answers are in the end. I have some theories on what you say, and I can share a little bit about it. But the most important bit is to come back to yourself. And you can discard anything that Lisa says. Like anything that she says in time, the most important teaching that is here is this, is self. And this is where, like this part can't be a cult, because that's not something I can give you. It's seemingly like I'm talking to you into something now, but you know it. You've had that awakening and you know it. You know that beingness beyond the mind. There is deep knowing of it. And this is the way home. That is home. So Lisa can say things, and anything she says becomes a belief or not a belief, and it might be helpful or it might not be helpful. So just take it lightly. The most important part actually is the energy underneath, that stillness underneath. So I've been involved in this subject for a long time, and also been involved in cultish activity. And I heard this saying recently: the problem with open-minded people, and it's normally only open-minded people that come to this subject, and that what that means is like we're not holding on really strongly to an idea. We're open. And because of that openness, it means that there's the ability to go past mind. Because we're not fixed on certain ideas, there's an ability to go beyond mind. But the problem with open-minded people, which is what most people here are, is that other people come along and keep trying to fill it up. And this, I feel like, is really... I'm the same. I'm like, I go to somebody and then they start talking and like it's not like I'm totally believing in their story, but I'm just totally there with them. Like, so if I'm around somebody that's speaking about aliens, like by the end of it, there might be like, and if that goes on for like 3 weeks, I'm looking after them. By the end of it, I might be too, like sitting outside with my metal cap on, waiting for the aliens to come, because I just don't have like really strong ideas about the way reality is. But even if the aliens come or don't come, in the end, whatever happens in this dream, the freedom is right here. And this dream could be different to what we expect. It could be that there's aliens coming. Yeah, somebody sent me a documentary recently about like covers up of aliens, but it doesn't even matter, because whether it comes or whether it doesn't, or whether we have to do this or not do this, the freedom is the beingness. That is the freedom. And then it's also noticing that, you know, when somebody speaks a lot like that, when you're in somebody's company, I mean, maybe people think that because I speak a lot on here, but generally in my life I'm quite quiet. But when somebody's speaking like that, you know, and like trying to convince you of these stories, it's like, you know, just checking into what their energy is underneath that. You know, often they need to convince you for themselves. You know, because they feel afraid, or they feel insignificant, or so just checking in to see what the energy is there in the moment.
He seemed to have like she would speak the language of awakening. She seemed to have higher consciousness too, because
Energetically, it
she
felt
had
expansive.
characteristics. It did at time. Well, it did at times, but it also was very focused on her, and she felt she was trying to get me to get ready. I mean,
Yeah.
she had a purpose in me to get me ready. It wasn't so much where am I at? How am I, you know, what am I thinking about this? And it was so
Just,
so it was
just,
just convincing enough, because yeah, she had that awareness
yeah,
language,
yeah.
you know. Um, and
Just pay attention though to what your body's feeling like in the presence in those moments, you know. And so there's the words, and maybe there is a certain amount of freedom there. Like, that doesn't it doesn't mean what she's saying is not true or is true. It's not even necessarily that. Just noticing what happens for you in that moment. like paying attention to the body. You know, if you're feeling invaded, if you're feeling like it's crossing your boundaries, if you're feeling like it's too much or you want her to stop, even if she's had that awakening, you know, you've got the right to feel all those things. That's the way these bodies move, you know, and testing that as well, you know, testing another person is really important in that, to say, okay, now this is crossing my boundaries. And if she can't stop, then that's a big flag, you know, as well. So somebody that has a good amount of empathy, which often comes with awakening, but not always, it's complicated, then if you say, this is crossing my boundary now, then they should be able to regulate themselves at some point. Maybe they get reactive in the moment, but they should then be able to come back and apologize and, you know, and stop or something. So it's also, you know, when I say testing, it's like not testing like you're testing in a negative way, but this is one way to work out not somebody's level of freedom, but somebody's level of self-awareness, that if you put up a boundary, if they try to crash it down, you know, when you get involved in cults, you know, cults will often not allow you to keep boundaries. You know, they will work and work at crushing down your boundary. Whereas sympathy with good self-awareness and with strong presence should respect boundaries.
I
Be
can
able
practice
to.
that better. I can practice that. That having boundaries, standing for boundaries. I think I believe by letting anybody say what they want, that's being good. That's being polite. It's being nice. But then I end up, not really feeling like, and I'm on the spectrum, so I think that's also a factor maybe, that people on the spectrum usually get taken advantage, can easily get targeted for things like that.
Boundaries are a really good one then. Like by saying, I mean, this is one way. So sometimes if you're on the spectrum, it can also become harder to recognize these things. But if you put up a boundary and somebody gets really reactive with you and doesn't come back and apologize for getting reactive, because sometimes people lose their temper in the moment and that's a normal thing. Like, but if somebody that's got good self-awareness will come back and apologize. So if you put up a boundary and somebody doesn't apologize and then keeps trying to go over it, or gets very reactive with you and keeps trying to go over it, then this is a big red flag generally. And this is something that cults, or somebody that's like in delusion or maybe being manipulative, might be doing, like might be a tactic. I mean, that's somewhere, like I suspect there's lots of neurodiversity in my family. I don't know, I've never been diagnosed with autism or anything like that, but I did have severe dyslexia in childhood. So I have also issues understanding boundaries. It's something I have to learn and continue to learn, because I don't always understand humans. And I get this too, that people often come to me and like bomb me with words. And then I'm just like, and I'm following everything they say, and I'm like, and then by the end of it, like the body doesn't feel good. So I try to like really pay attention, you know, when the body begins to not feel good, that's when I begin to try to really stop it. It's not always possible, but yeah.
So don't look at what you understand, or frustrated that you have to try to understand what they're saying, but feel your body.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel good anyway, whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
Or what I feel.
Yeah.
Honor yourself.
Yeah, really like pay attention, because the body can be good indicator from when somebody's crossing a boundary. But this is such a deep subject. There's so many different layers to it, because I also feel that often people that are on the spectrum have psychic stuff going on. Have you ever listened to telepathic tapes? The telepathic tapes?
No, I've heard about them though.
Yeah, and so this is more of people that are like that have autism, and they're not like they they're not verbal, but there's lots of
Yeah.
evidence of like telepathy that's happening, like very provable evidence. And then I think that people that
Yeah.
are on the spectrum that maybe don't have it to that extreme maybe have telepathic abilities, but it's just not as strong. And so therefore when they're in communication, that's another reason why communication's getting very confused, because they're also telepathically picking up on people. Like, so my friend that's autistic, one thing that they struggle with is that they always feel the other person knows how they feel. And I feel that's because they often know how the other person feels, because they are telepathic. So then they project that. So this is another place where like communication gets very confused, so then they can't work out, why does this person must know how I feel, like it gets all confused. It's so interesting though. Yeah.
And if they don't investigate why they're feeling that, they might live their whole life feeling other people without even thinking that that's the way your life is supposed to be.
Yeah, and thinking that
Not
that's
even thinking
them
it's
as well.
abnormal.
Yeah, and then also thinking it's them as well. So also getting confused as like what they think or feel. Like, because they're psychically picking up on the other, and then they think it's their thoughts or their feelings. It can get all confused as well. I think that there'll be more exploration of these things in the future. Like,
It seems like there's a lot more folks on neurodivergence, understanding and acceptance, and I mean, there's federal funding now for
yeah,
in America for diagnosed neurodivergence that makes trying to have a job almost impossible or very uncomfortable or whatever. But I mean, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, thank you for your question though today. I think it's really helpful for other people, because I think other people struggle with this as well. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be in the trenches there with you.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Chris. I also just feel like I'll say is that it is also such a complicated subject, like cults and abuse and manipulation and being taken advantage of. So if that's happening for you, I really recommend like reaching out with someone and speaking to someone privately about it. This can be so helpful. Yeah, there's also lots of books out there as well. I think I have some on my website about it. You can look. Thanks, Lisa. This is from Mitch. It's hard for me to know the difference between what is a negative disassociation from the body, as you describe, and just being dissolved in spaciousness where the body dissolves and it's blissful. Yeah, I understand. I think negative disassociation doesn't feel good. That might be a clue. Feels sort of numb. So Zoe says, "Oh man, that's a great question. I love your eye gaze silent periods. It's such a great invitation." And then Sid says, "Can we ask questions here for the satsang?" Yes, Sid, you can. Hey, Amanda, you can unmute yourself.
Hi,
Hey, nice to see you.
thank you. Yeah, it- um, um, sometimes, so there's a looking out. Sometimes it feels like something's looking out through the eyes, my eyes, or these eyes. Um, a- and then the contraction. I was trying to remember my question. So, got it. Then, like, the contraction came. I don't know, someone, like contraction, maybe a judgment of the other. And then you said, just feel the contraction. Like, no, like, don't make it mean something. So if like something's on my foot, it's heavy and I might need to move my foot. So it's so judgment comes, let's say. Now it's not so much here, but I can remember. Judgment, contraction in the stomach. Then don't make A equals B equals C kind of thing. But like it's years and years of training that contraction means me, and the judgment, like, because the judgment's there, oh, they're annoying, which is usually one of my thoughts. And or something tired or irritated about the other. And it creates this whole evaluation of them versus me, contraction. So the contraction and the story connected because they've learned to be connected. It feels like things are they all like floating around, like let's say A, contraction, B, thought. They all like floating around like these letters. I mean, not real letters, obviously. But is that a helpful way to think? And that the threads between the letters A equals B equals C are imaginary threads? Am I making sense? Yeah.
I don't know ultimately if you're making sense, but I feel like I'm understanding you. I don't know what, like, that's a hard question, but I feel like I'm getting a sense of what you mean.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know if other people, maybe they're a bit like confused.
I might be like, what is she doing? So I guess I'm asking not as a practice, but to find a way to unhook the the example you had, I'm angry at the partner because,
Yeah.
It feels like if I unhook things, then we're like, oh my God, all the letters of the alphabet are everywhere and none of them are connected and they're in no order.
Yeah. Well, my recommendation would be that I mean, there's different things that you can do. So you can disconnect the thinking and the bodily contractions by doing body work or by doing emotional release or TRE. This will release these things and change the energies in the body. Like you could do some pranayama breathing or Wim Hof breathing or something, and it will shift the energies in the body, and most likely the contraction in your body will change. But then maybe when you get up again, you'll think about the same thing, and then the contraction will come back. But body work is really profound. Like you do an hour yoga, and then the thinking mind will be different, because the body and the mind are really deeply connected. Like they are one and the same thing. So, you know, we don't even know where thoughts come from.
No. So are you saying, I mean, in my therapeutic work, I do a lot of kind of unhooking encoded trauma.
Yeah.
So would you say every kind of contraction connected to an evaluation, or any contraction connected to a thought of separation, subject object, will be some learnt, or some, it's learned?
Yeah, it is learned, and there's two different areas to it. There is the practical working, where the body needs to know subject object, and then there is the imagination, like psychological stuff, which isn't necessary, which gets added on top, and that is the belief that that is a somebody. So it's not that all connections need to leave, you know, like we need a practical functioning body, and there can be discernment, like your body likes one thing as opposed to other, and prefers certain people as opposed to other people, which you could all say is based on this idea of subject object. But it's when it jumps onto the next stage of believing that freedom is found anywhere there. So say if somebody's speaking and there is like a dislike of that person speaking, you're most probably not going to dislike someone, because you're not holding on to the idea of someone. It's just disliking something in the moment. So it's like someone's behaving a certain way and there's a dislike of that particular behavior. But you can't really hold on to a story of this person forever. Like there is no person forever. So it's more of a momentary thing. So say if somebody's there is irritation arising to somebody's behavior, that could be a feeling in the body, and that could even be an uncomfortable feeling in the body. But it doesn't take away witnessing at all, if we call it witnessing. It doesn't take away the spaciousness. So ideally what begins to happen is the spaciousness. So you're in that wide, spacious eye. Somebody comes along and does something, a housemate comes along and does something which is annoying. And then there is a discomfort that arises in that. And through that discomfort, it might encourage better communication. When identified discomfort, it might then lead into a lot of suffering, because it's then about you and them. But in its positive, that discomfort could lead to a communication which makes the relationship more healthy and more open, if the other person is open to that. You know, so it's like it's not that that discomfort is meant to not arise. You know, it's from being a therapist, you know that it's important to not have arguments where it's hateful, but for people to disagree in relationships. It's unhealthy if you never disagree, they often say. It's because then that produces more trust, that you can get over disagreements, and that you can have separate opinions. It's not enmeshed. It can also, you know, show that someone's not being manipulative, because you can learn like apology, and you can learn like all these like really great things that create more intimacy. So discomforts in the body are natural. They're like an indication of how we move together. The unnatural thing to me is when you lose self, which is presence, and then you begin to find freedom in that, the resolution of that irritation. So somebody irritates you by leaving their washing out for days, for example, or something like this. And the separation is the belief that feeling of discomfort around it is taken away freedom. And the only way you can get freedom back is to get them to apologize and not do that again. And this is where it gets all really, you know, messed up, and like in the sense of like lots of shame and discomfort comes in. So it's knowing, it's staying in the initial I the whole way through it, and deep conviction that your freedom and your peace and your relaxation is always here. And then it frees up the conversation, because it could be that it's uncomfortable with them, and that there is like not argument, like hateful argument, but disagreement with the person. It could also be a little bit heated with the person. But there's deep resting in self, knowing that that is the freedom. So therefore the outcome of that doesn't give you freedom and doesn't stop the mind obsessively thinking about it, because your mind's not obsessively thinking about it because you're resting in self. It's just an energy that's coming up a little bit and there's a little bit of thinking about it. You
Yeah.
understand the difference? So when you're getting
Yeah, it
into
makes
like
total sense.
obsessing about it, then the energy will get bigger and bigger in your body, and then the interaction with the other person will be like fire by the time you interact. You know, there'll be so much energy in it, you'll be really nervous about it. Whereas if you stay in I and recognize that the witnessing is the freedom, then the conversation loses its intensity. And that is just about the bodily pleasure. And that's nice to have people that respect and to live in a respectful, healthy dynamic. So when it gets really intense, and when you lose the I and you get so involved in it, then it's like I would do reset. I would do some form of body work or emotional release to try and like balance it. And then once that feels more balanced, then moving the attention back into the witnessing perspective again. You know, so focusing more on that. And then just noticing, you know, so it might keep coming up, because in the end, these things come up until they're seen through to that they're not true. So if it keeps repetitively coming up, not beating yourself up, but saying, okay, so this is, you know, always the attitude that this is expanding me. This isn't something which is deflating me more. This is something which is opening me up more and more.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess most people, or I've lived most of my life, you know, well, when that's fixed, oh, that's annoying. And you never rest. It's always the next thing.
Yeah.
And the sense of, being in your ground, not sort of jumping into someone else's ship, as it were, you know, just to and, you know, I remember someone saying about the Dalai Lama once. They were really shocked because he wanted a chocolate biscuit or something, and they didn't think he'd have preferences. Like, he was happy with the other biscuits, but he'd wanted a chocolate one, and they were really shocked. But it wasn't that he lost his whole inner peace because there were no chocolate biscuits.
Yeah.
Which I know on occasion I might have in the past. Actually really genuinely lost it. Now I've got BIM, but yeah, it's that, you know, you're not, but that doesn't mean there's not preference.
Yeah.
And it makes me think also of like a parent. I remember like hearing this parent saying they were sort of saying something to this child, and they knew it wasn't real, but they had to sort of act this way with this child because it was an important learning lesson. But they were really laughing about the situation, but they couldn't laugh with the child. So no, it's very serious. You don't do whatever they were doing. I don't know, either. I don't know, whatever, mud or something. I don't know what it was. But I mean, but yeah, I really see the difference. And it's like the body, the mammal body will do quite a lot on its own without any thought needed anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And also there is preference, and if one is not able to be in the witnesser, then there's more, then that's when we go in and dig in and really look therapeutically it's an opening rather than I'm so bad. It's like there's something here that's held on to that needs to be released.
Yeah.
A misbelief. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Pleasure. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. Okay. I think that is the end for today. Yeah. So if you're in the Zoom meeting, then you can stay in the Zoom meeting, and then I just go around and acknowledge everybody that's in the Zoom meeting. But if you're on YouTube, then I'm going to leave you now. So just stay in the Zoom meeting if you want to do that. But to those on YouTube, I'm going to leave you now. Hang on, I have to find all my technical pages. How do I? Oh yeah, leave you. Yeah. So so thank you to everybody on YouTube. I really appreciate spending this time with everybody. Yeah, and I'm just so appreciative, if that's a word, appreciative, of like all these beings that are open to this subject. It's really beautiful every week to meet all these people that are open to going beyond themselves. Yeah. And I really, really wish you everything. Not one or two or three things, but every God blessed thing